What if I told you that the biggest controversy of this FIFA World Cup didn't happen on the pitch, but behind closed doors? A straight red card, a mandatory suspension, a decision that seemed final, and then everything changed. A player who was supposed to miss one of the most important matches of the tournament was suddenly cleared to play. Why? What really happened behind the scenes? Did FIFA simply apply its own rules, or did political pressure rewrite the laws of football? Today on Expertise AI, we're taking you inside one of the most controversial decisions in modern football history. Using official FIFA regulations, verified reports, legal analysis, and international media sources, we'll uncover what really happened in the Folarin Balogun case, why this unprecedented decision shocked the football world, and how it could change the future of every major international tournament. But stay with us until the very end, because in the final minutes of this investigation, we'll reveal the one question FIFA still hasn't fully answered, a question that could change the way you see football forever. Before we begin, take just 2 seconds to support our work. Subscribe to Expertise AI, turn on the notification bell, and become part of a global community passionate about football, facts, and intelligent analysis. Then leave your prediction in the comments. Did FIFA deliver justice, or create the most dangerous precedent in World Cup history? Your opinion matters, and the best comments may be featured in one of our upcoming videos. And don't forget to share this video with every football fan you know, because this is more than a football story. It's a story about power, justice, politics, and the future of the world's biggest sport. So buckle up, because once you discover what really happened, you'll never look at football the same way again. Welcome to Expertise AI. Let's begin.
What if a simple red card could literally change the destiny of a World Cup?
I mean, we're really looking at the ultimate collision here, right? Sports, law, and, well, global power.
Exactly. Why did FIFA make a decision that absolutely no one saw coming? And, what does this unprecedented affair reveal about the hidden depths of world football?
The case file we have today is, it's going to test everything we thought we knew about the rules of the game.
Welcome to Expertise AI, the channel that decrypts the biggest affairs in world football with in-depth analysis, verified facts, and explanations accessible to absolutely everyone.
And this one is a wild ride.
It really is. So if you like this type of content, subscribe right now. Hit that bell notification so you never miss an exclusive analysis. And tell us in the comments what your prediction or opinion is on this whole case. Finally, share this video massively so we can bring this debate to as many passionate football fans as possible.
Because you're going to want to debate this one. The deeper you look into the mechanics of this specific decision, the more complex it gets.
Oh, completely. Today, our mission is to forensically reconstruct one of the most baffling administrative reversals in modern sports history. We're talking about the unprecedented cancellation of Folarin Balogun's red card suspension.
Right, because we aren't just looking at a foul on a pitch here. We're looking at a stress test of FIFA's entire judicial apparatus.
Yeah. We're going to dig into the legal loopholes, the intense political pressure, the global media war, and, well, what this means for the future of the sport.
Let's set the scene first, because understanding the gravity requires, feeling the tension of that moment.
Good call. So picture this. We are at the World Cup. The United States is playing Bosnia-Herzegovina. The stakes are just astronomical.
The atmosphere is that heavy, humid tension, the kind you only get in the crucible of international tournament football.
It's basically less a sporting event and more of a diplomatic summit played at 190 beats per minute.
Right, and every single tackle carries the weight of a nation. The physical and emotional limits of these players are being tested with every passing second.
You have tens of thousands of screaming fans in the stands, millions watching on screens around the world. The adrenaline is just off the charts.
The tactical setups are rigid, and the margins for error are, well, they're virtually non-existent. One single mistake doesn't just concede a goal.
It alters the trajectory of a country's sporting history. And right in the middle of this organized chaos, the incident happens.
Folarin Balogun.
Yep. Balogun, who is just this wildly crucial piece of the U.S. attacking machinery, he commits a foul. The referee blows the whistle. The game stops.
But it's not a quick free kick where everyone jogs back into position.
No, we get that dreaded, agonizing pause. The VAR, the video assistant referee, intervenes.
And that pause is a psychological eternity in football. Time essentially freezes for everyone in the stadium.
I can literally picture it. The referee standing there, totally isolated, finger pressed to his earpiece.
Listening to voices in a control room miles away, the fans are holding their breath, players are swarming him, trying to plead their cases.
But he waves them away. And in this specific instance, the VAR reviews the footage from multiple high-definition angles. They analyze the contact, the intensity, the intent.
And they conclude that Balogun's action was not just a run-of-the-mill foul, it crossed the threshold into a punishable offense of the highest order.
A straight red card.
Exactly.
The referee walks over, reaches into his back pocket, and pulls out the red. Balogun is expelled.
He has to take that long, lonely walk down the tunnel, listening to the roar of the crowd shift into this chaotic mix of cheers and boos.
So now, for the casual fan, the punishment seems to end when the player leaves the pitch.
Right. The team goes down to 10 men, they fight to survive the rest of the match, and that's the end of the story.
But leaving the pitch is only the tactical punishment. The institutional punishment is what follows, and that is where this investigation really begins.
Historically and fundamentally, within the framework of global football, a straight red card triggers a secondary automatic consequence.
The suspension for the following match.
Always. You commit a red card offense, you sit out the next match.
And in the context of this specific World Cup bracket, that automatic suspension meant Balogun was slated to be entirely deprived of playing in the massive impending round of 16 match.
And this wasn't a meaningless group stage game. This was a knockout game against Belgium.
A team that represents a European powerhouse. They have this golden generation of talent.
The U.S. losing Balogun for that specific match is a tactical disaster. He's their spearhead.
He's the player who stretches the defense, who provides that lethal finishing touch. Removing him from the board is the kind of blow that ruins months of tactical preparation.
It shatters World Cup dreams before the opening whistle even blows. But the system relies on this harsh reality.
Right. It's a binary cause and effect mechanism. It's designed to maintain order and provide a non-negotiable consequence.
The automatic suspension is supposed to be inescapable.
Which brings us to the bombshell, a shockwave that rippled from the FIFA headquarters in Zurich all the way to the locker rooms of every single team left in the tournament.
Days later, after a period of intense controversy, simmering national outrage, and back-channel murmurs,
FIFA's Disciplinary Committee re-examines the case. And they do the unthinkable. They completely list the suspension. Balogun is cleared to play against Belgium.
The collective reaction across the global footballing community was just sheer bewilderment.
Okay, I have to jump in here with an analogy, because this is where my brain completely short-circuits.
Let's hear it.
To me, this is like a police officer writing a speeding ticket based on a perfectly calibrated radar gun. And the next day, the mayor cancels the ticket because the driver happens to be a celebrity on their way to a big event.
That's actually a pretty accurate way to frame the optics of it.
Right. It doesn't just cancel the ticket. It fundamentally breaks the public's trust in the radar gun.
Yeah.
How is it physically, legally possible that a red card isn't actually a red card anymore?
That is the multi-million-dollar question that sent legal experts, sports journalists, and rival federations basically scrambling for the FIFA rulebooks.
I mean, how does an automatic, inescapable consequence just vanish into thin air?
To understand how a red card seemingly stopped being a red card, we have to dissect the anatomy of the rule itself.
Break it down for us. Because the assumption for like 99% of fans is that the rules are black and white. Law 12 of the game says serious foul play gets a red card. End of sentence.
Well, we need to separate the action on the pitch from the boardroom mechanics.
Okay.
According to the foundational laws of the game, the referee is the sole arbiter of facts on the field. The foul happened. The expulsion happened.
So the referee wasn't technically overruled.
Exactly. The referee's decision to show the red card was technically upheld. They didn't erase the red card from the annals of history.
Wait, they didn't?
No, and they didn't publicly state the referee made an error in judgment either.
Okay, so the red card stands, but the suspension disappears. That sounds like a massive contradiction.
It sounds like one until you dive into the FIFA Disciplinary Code. This code operates almost like a parallel legal system.
A parallel system. Interesting.
Yeah, it has its own appellate structures and technical provisions completely separate from the laws of the game enforced on the pitch.
So what did the disciplinary committee actually do?
They utilized a specific provision to lift the consequence of the card. Based on powers within their card, they suspended the application of the sanction.
What was the actual legal maneuver?
Placing Folarin Balogun on a probationary period.
Probation. Look, that sounds like a concept from the criminal justice system, not a soccer tournament.
The underlying logic is actually quite similar. When a player is put on probation by FIFA, it means the suspension is literally hanging over their head.
So it's paused, not destroyed.
Correct. It has been paused.
Yeah.
If the player commits a new offense during this defined probationary period, the original sanction, that missing game, is immediately reinstated.
Wow.
And that is usually applied on top of whatever new punishment they incur for the second offense.
But hold on, let's look at the context here. In a domestic league format, like the English Premier League or La Liga, a probationary period spanning 9 months might make some logical sense, right?
Sure, because you have time to monitor the player's behavior over 38 games.
Exactly. But in a World Cup, a hyper-condensed tournament that lasts a few weeks, where every game in the knockout stage is sudden death,
It's an incredibly compressed timeline.
applying probation in this environment feels entirely alien to the rhythm of international football. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Which is exactly why legal scholars were so stunned. But here's the thing. Factually and procedurally, the jurisdictional organs of FIFA possess the authority to do this.
They actually have this in writing.
Yes. Article 33 of the FIFA Disciplinary Code allows for the suspension of a sanction under very specific, exceptional circumstances.
Exceptional circumstances. That's a very loaded phrase.
It is. But the disciplinary committee does have the mandate to review cases and apply or suspend sanctions as they see fit. The mechanism absolutely exists in the text.
Okay, but just because a law exists on the books doesn't mean you use it. There are arcane laws in cities all over the world that no one has enforced in a century.
That's a very fair point.
The existence of the loophole isn't the story here. The activation of the loophole is.
That is the critical distinction. The fact that FIFA chose to use this mechanism in this specific context for this specific player right before a massive knockout game.
That's what fuels the intense hypothesis of special treatment.
Exactly. They didn't invent a new rule, but they dusted off a procedural tool that is almost never utilized in the crucible of a World Cup knockout stage.
So the legal architecture was there, ready to be used.
But the decision to pull that specific lever is what caused the shockwave.
And we really cannot talk about why they might have pulled that lever
No.
without walking straight into the political arena.
No, we can't, because the reality of modern sports is that they do not exist in a vacuum.
The moment that red card was shown, the clock started ticking and the pressure started mounting. And we aren't just talking about angry fans flooding social media with hashtags.
We are talking about heavy-hitting geopolitical pressure from one of the most powerful nations on Earth.
Let's trace the timeline of that pressure. Immediately following the initial suspension, before any appeal was officially heard, the American political machine kicked into gear.
It was almost instantaneous.
We saw Marco Rubio publicly denounce the initial suspension. He used his platform to frame the red card as fundamentally unfair to the United States and actively demanded an appeals procedure.
Think about the weight of that action for a second.
It's massive.
It is no longer just the U.S. Soccer Federation filing standard administrative paperwork through the proper channels. You now have a prominent political figure utilizing their platform to exert influence on a global sporting institution.
And we have to consider the unspoken leverage here, right? The United States is a massive financial engine for global sports.
Absolutely. And a central figure in hosting future tournaments like the 2026 World Cup.
So when a politician from a host nation starts talking about unfairness, the executives in Zurich are going to hear it, whether they admit it or not.
The diplomatic footprint of this incident escalated from a sporting dispute regarding a tackle to a matter of national grievance almost overnight.
But Rubio was just the opening act. The ultimate amplifier gets involved next.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump enters the narrative. Following the reversal of the suspension, Trump publicly praised the final decision.
He explicitly thanked FIFA for correcting what he called a grave injustice.
Now, before we dissect the impact of those words, it is absolutely critical to state our parameters for you, the listener.
Yes, very important. We are analyzing these political interventions purely as variables in a complex equation of sports diplomacy.
We are strictly looking at the diplomatic footprint, the media optics, and the communication strategies at play here.
We are not endorsing, nor are we condemning, the viewpoints of Donald Trump or Marco Rubio. We are treating their public statements as raw data points.
Exactly. Data points that heavily impacted the ecosystem of this World Our job here is to show you the mechanics of the machine, not to tell you who to vote for.
But as objective analysts, we have to measure the sheer U.S. president throwing the words grave injustice around regarding a football match.
Right, because that phrase, grave injustice, that is usually reserved for human rights violations or, monumental legal failures.
Applying it to a VAR decision changes the entire gravity of the room.
It really does. When political figures of that magnitude use the language of injustice and reparation in a sporting context, they're speaking directly to a national sense of pride.
They are framing a sporting sanction as a geopolitical slight.
They mobilize a demographic that might not even follow football regularly, but who will instinctively rally against perceived international unfairness.
So you have this roaring engine of American political pressure demanding justice and then celebrating it loudly.
And in stark contrast to this emotionally charged political cheering, you have FIFA.
Right.
What was their public response to being thanked by Donald Trump for fixing this so-called injustice?
Silence. Institutional, calculated, impenetrable silence.
Wait, not even a press release to defend their referees. No sweeping statement about the integrity of the disciplinary process.
Nothing of the sort. And that contrast is, well, it's one of the most fascinating aspects of this entire affair.
How so?
Because while the political sphere was shouting through megaphones, FIFA maintained this rigid, almost robotic institutional posture.
They just kept their heads down.
They did not issue a long emotional statement to counter the politicians, nor did they validate them. They acted purely through formal administrative paperwork.
They released the decision, cited the procedural code regarding probation, and closed the door.
It's the ultimate bureaucratic firewall. They are essentially saying, we are just processing paperwork in Switzerland, ignore the geopolitical fireworks outside.
But you cannot ignore the fireworks when they are illuminating the entire tournament.
No, you really can't.
Which forces us to ask, how did this massive political angle, this framing of the issue as a corrected national injustice, fracture the global perception of the event?
Because the rest of the world certainly didn't see this as a victory for common sense.
Definitely not. Now, if this analysis is helping you see this case from a totally new angle, take a second to subscribe to the Expertise AI channel.
Your support is exactly what allows us to produce more of these high-quality investigations into the hidden mechanics of global sports.
And we really want to hear from you on this. Did FIFA make the right decision? Is probation a valid concept to introduce in the middle of a World Cup knockout stage?
Let us know. Your opinion interests us, so drop your thoughts in the comments.
And don't forget to share this video with your football-obsessed friends who think they know everything about the rules of the game. They might have to rewrite their rule books after this one.
They absolutely will, because the traditional rule book was essentially tossed out the window, and the media response reflected that chaos.
Let's get back into the trenches of that global media war. You've analyzed the coverage across different continents, and it reads like a tale of two completely different realities.
It really does. The fracture was immediate, and it split the footballing world cleanly down the middle.
Let's start with Europe, specifically the French press, who have always sort of positioned themselves as the purists and guardians of footballing tradition. What was the tone there?
The French media adopted a tone that was incredibly critical, highly skeptical, and deeply focused on the procedural anomaly.
So they didn't care about the U.S. team's tactical needs?
Not at all. They viewed the reversal entirely through the lens of institutional integrity. They were concerned with the sanctity of the sport.
Any specific examples?
Take Le Dauphiné, a prominent regional paper. They didn't mince words. They explicitly and repeatedly called it a scandal, a scandal.
A scandal. I mean, in sports journalism, particularly in Europe, you don't throw that word around lightly.
No, you don't. It immediately suggests something hidden and fundamentally improper. Backroom deals, corruption, or a catastrophic failure of the regulatory system.
And what about the national papers?
Le Figaro took a slightly different angle, focusing heavily on the reaction of the opponents. They highlighted the stupefaction, the sheer shock and absolute amazement of the Belgians.
Painting a picture of a footballing world completely bewildered by FIFA's sudden elasticity.
Exactly. And then you have the specialized sports press, like Foot Mercado.
How did they handle the technical side of the reversal?
They took a much more pedagogical approach, but it was still deeply rooted in that European skepticism. They dedicated massive column inches to painstakingly breaking down the disciplinary mechanism.
Like they were trying to reverse engineer FIFA's logic to see if it held water.
Yes. They went through the disciplinary code article by article, trying to find the justification. But across the board in the French press, the prevailing sentiment was unified.
Which was?
This is not how football works. This is an aberration.
Wow. Now let's cross the Atlantic. Because I imagine the American press was not using words like scandal or aberration.
It was a complete 180-degree shift in narrative. The American perspective was driven by the acute, visceral feeling of being an aggrieved nation that had finally been vindicated.
The focus wasn't on the sanctity of the FIFA rulebook.
Right, because many American commentators viewed that rulebook as overly rigid anyway. The focus was on the initial injustice of losing a star player to a controversial VAR call and the overwhelming relief regarding the reparation of that sanction.
The framing is entirely different. It's justice served. The system was broken by a bad refereeing decision, but it heroically fixed itself just in time for the big game.
The American media narrative framed Balogun as a victim of a harsh, overly punitive bureaucracy, and they viewed the reversal as a triumph of common sense and fairness.
And what about the technicality probation?
It was largely glossed over. The headline was simply that the right player was back on the pitch.
And this is where Donald Trump's intervention acts as such a fascinating catalyst for the media. He didn't create the divide between European purists and American pragmatists.
No, but he certainly illuminated it like a flare in the night sky. He acted as the ultimate revealing agent for the media's underlying biases.
How did the French media react to his comments?
With a sense of profound alarm. They used his quotes to amplify the narrative of a chaotic polemic. The European view was essentially, look, this is what happens when you bend the rules. Now the politicians are dictating FIFA policy.
So his involvement actually validated their use of the word scandal.
Exactly. But in the U.S. media ecosystem, his statement played a totally different role. He served as a massive megaphone for the aggrieved American camp.
His framing of a grave injustice just perfectly aligned with the emotional state of the fan base and the sports talk radio circuit.
He took a sports grievance, elevated it to a national talking point, and gave the concept of reparation a massive, inescapable platform.
But caught in the absolute crossfire of all of this, the geopolitical posturing, the media narratives of scandal versus justice, the debates over FIFA's disciplinary code are the actual victims of this administrative reversal.
The Belgian national team.
Yes. We cannot forget the sporting reality of Belgium in this scenario. Imagine the environment in their camp.
They are preparing for a massive round of 16 match. The coaching staff has spent days poring over scouting reports.
They have designed a specific tactical setup, and that entire defensive structure is predicated on the verified, documented fact that Folarin Balogun is suspended.
A dynamic, line-breaking forward with immense pace.
Let's talk about that specific tactical gamage. If Balogun is out, the U.S. might play a false nine, or a more physical target man, right?
Most likely, yes.
So the Belgian manager spends 48 hours running training drills to combat a specific style of play. They do the math. They build their strategy around a weakened, or at least altered, U.S. team.
And then at the 11th hour, the fundamental rules of reality change.
Suddenly they have to scrap 2 days of preparation and figure out how to stop Balogun.
They were left completely stupefaced, to use Flivergo's accurate description. Astounded. Blindsided.
I mean, imagine being the Belgian manager sitting in a press conference.
You are told that an unprecedented rule change, a legal loophole involving probation that hasn't been seen in this context in modern history, has just been activated right before your knockout game.
It feels like the ground is shifting beneath your feet. It has to feel like the deck is stacked.
Whether there was actual collusion or not, the perception for Belgium must have been that they weren't just playing 11 guys in U.S. jerseys.
They were playing the geopolitical weight of the United States.
And that brings us to the most fragile element in this entire ecosystem, the people who are actually on the pitch.
The referees, trying to enforce the laws of the game while billions of dollars and immense political pressures swirl around them.
This is perhaps the most profound institutional consequence of this entire affair. If we look at the academic and legal framework of the referee's role, particularly according to UEFA guidelines.
What do they say?
Well, referees are not just whistleblowers. They are classified as the ambassadors of the game.
Okay, what does that title actually mean in practice? It sounds very ceremonial.
It means their legitimacy rests entirely on two foundational pillars: sporting justice and strict, unwavering neutrality. They are the human embodiment of the rule book.
So they have to be completely impartial.
Exactly. For the game to function, for the illusion of fairness to persist, everyone, the players, the managers, the fans, the politicians, must believe that the referee is an impartial arbiter who is blind to outside context.
But we just established that context is everything. An international match isn't a kickabout in the park. It's proxy warfare in shorts and cleats.
The players know it, the fans know it.
And that immense pressure is exactly why the directive given to referees is so absolute, right?
Yes. They are instructed, psychologically trained, and mandated to be completely impermeable to outside influence.
It does not matter if a politician is tweeting, if the global media is screaming scandal, or if the host nation is demanding a favorable call to keep their tournament alive.
They have to exist in a vacuum. If a tackle is a red card in the first minute of a friendly match in front of 100 people, it has to be a red card in the 90th minute of a World Cup knockout game in front of 1 billion people.
Furthermore, they are required to rigorously document and report any attempts at manipulation or coercion.
Their neutrality is the only structural element standing between competitive sport and total chaos.
Okay, I have to push back here, using the speeding ticket analogy from earlier.
Okay.
If referees are supposed to be this impenetrable shield against politics, if they are the ultimate arbiters of the game, doesn't FIFA swooping in and overturning their automatic sanction completely break the radar gun?
That is the structural paradox at the very heart of this case.
You have a referee who made a massive high-pressure call on the pitch. They utilized the VAR control room. They applied the law exactly as written.
And then the governing body functionally steps in and says, never mind, we're pausing the consequence.
Doesn't that leave the referee completely exposed and undermine their authority for the rest of the tournament?
It potentially inflicts long-term catastrophic damage on the authority of their own officials. Yes.
Because the next time that referee steps onto a pitch, the players know that his decisions aren't final.
Precisely. The referee followed the protocol. They issued the red card. But by listing the suspension, FIFA signaled to the world that the consequences of a referee's decision are negotiable.
Negotiable if the pressure is high enough or the legal team is clever enough.
It turns a definitive ruling into a draft document. It tells players that arguing with the referee might not work, but having your politicians argue with FIFA just might.
Which leads us into the most uncomfortable part of this deep dive, the taboo questions.
The things people whisper in the press boxes, the theories discussed in online forums, but hesitate to say into a microphone.
But we are going to explore them purely as analytical questions and thought experiments, not as established facts.
Right.
Question number 1. Does this create a dangerous precedent?
In the legal world, precedent is everything. By utilizing this probation loophole in a World Cup context, FIFA has unlocked a door that they might not be able to close.
So what happens next time?
The next time a star player from a major nation receives a red card before a crucial match, their federation won't just accept the standard suspension.
They will immediately point to the precedent of Folarin Balogun.
They will demand their own probationary period. It threatens to transform a binary disciplinary system into a relentless theater of negotiation.
Every single red card will become a legal battle. Which brings us to the second taboo question. Is FIFA truly independent from the political gravity of massive nations?
It's a question that strikes at the core of international sports governance. FIFA is technically a non-governmental sporting body, but it operates on a scale that rivals the United Nations.
The optics of this case, a suspension lifted after intense public pressure from American politicians, are undeniably terrible for the perception of independence.
And this remains true regardless of whether the disciplinary committee actually yielded to that political pressure, or if they simply followed a weird, isolated quirk of their own disciplinary code.
Because in the court of public opinion, the perception of yielding to pressure is almost as damaging as the act itself.
Exactly. When the timeline shows a politician demanding action and then the action happens, the public draws a straight line between the two.
Even if the bureaucratic reality was more nuanced.
Yes.
So we have to ask, do global superpowers get a different reading of the rulebook?
Let's run a thought experiment on that.
Okay, let's say this exact tackle was committed by a player from a much smaller nation, a country without a massive global media market,
Without politicians who command international headlines.
without the leverage of hosting future tournaments. Does that suspension get lifted? Does FIFA dig into Article 33 of their disciplinary code to find a probation loophole for a player from a nation of 2 million people?
That is the exact fear that generates headlines like "scandal in the French press." It is the fear of a two-tiered justice system in sports, where the rules apply rigidly to the small nations, but are flexible for the giants.
To really understand the immense stakes FIFA was juggling, we have to run the counterfactual scenario. We have to analyze what would have happened if they hadn't found this loophole.
Let's play that out. FIFA holds the line. The suspension remains in place.
The United States plays Belgium without Folarin Balogun.
In that scenario, the institutional credibility of the referee on the pitch is perfectly maintained. The rulebook is upheld as absolute, binary, and impartial.
The European media praises FIFA for standing strong.
However, the American outrage would have been deafening. The narrative of a stolen opportunity and an unjust system would have completely overshadowed the actual round of 16 match.
The entire tournament would have been dragged into a massive weeks-long controversy about the rigidity of the rules and the negative impact of VAR on the spirit of the game.
It would have been an absolute public relations nightmare in one of the most lucrative commercial markets on the planet, a catastrophic one.
So by reversing the suspension, FIFA saved the spectacle of the US versus Belgium match.
They kept the American market fully engaged, they placated the political outrage, and they ensured the stars were on the pitch.
But the cost was incredibly high.
They risked their own institutional credibility, they undermined their referees, and they permanently damaged the trust of European teams like Belgium,
who walked away feeling that the integrity of the competition was compromised for the sake of television ratings and geopolitical appeasement.
They traded a short-term PR crisis in the American market for a long-term crisis of faith in the European market. It's an impossible balancing act played out on the biggest stage on Earth.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today, from the pitch in the stadium to the halls of power. Bring us home. Synthesize what we've learned.
To summarize this unprecedented affair, we have witnessed a profound legal anomaly in the world of sports.
The activation of a probation period in a condensed World Cup format,
which completely shattered the historical understanding of a red card's consequences. This administrative maneuver created an unparalleled sporting impact, drastically altering the tactical reality of a knockout bracket at the last possible second,
leaving teams like Belgium scrambling. It also exposed a deeply fractured media ecosystem.
A starkly divided global landscape where one side of the ocean saw a shocking scandal of procedure and a breach of tradition,
while the other side saw the righteous correction of a systemic injustice.
Furthermore, it demonstrated the sheer, undeniable weight of political optics in modern sports.
Statements from figures like Donald Trump and Marco Rubio proved that international football is inextricably linked to diplomatic leverage.
And finally, it highlighted the incredibly fragile independence of the referees, whose ultimate on-pitch authority was superseded by obscure administrative maneuvering in a boardroom miles away.
It is a case study that will be dissected in sports law classes, referee training camps, and diplomatic seminars for decades to come.
Without a doubt.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought to chew on. We've spent the last hour examining the mechanics of how a rule can bend when the pressure gets high enough.
We've seen a suspension paused for a World Cup knockout game today.
But what happens tomorrow? What happens when a nation with even more geopolitical leverage, perhaps a host nation with billions of dollars of infrastructure investment on the line, demands that a VAR decision itself be completely overturned after the final whistle has blown?
That's the terrifying logical conclusion of this precedent.
If the consequence of a red card can be erased to satisfy political pressure, what is stopping a governing body from changing the final score of a match to achieve the same result? Where does the bending stop, and where does the sport fundamentally break?
A question that might define the next era of global football.
Thank you so much for following this investigation to the very end. If this analysis allowed you to better understand the hidden mechanics and the high-stakes politics behind this affair, subscribe right now to the Expertise AI channel.
You do not want to miss our upcoming deep dives into the hidden corners of world sports.
Keep questioning what you see on the pitch, keep challenging the narratives you hear, and we will see you next time.
As we reach the end of this investigation, one thing has become crystal clear. This story is no longer just about Folarin Balogun. It is about something much bigger. It is about the future of football itself. For decades, football has been built on one simple principle. The same rules apply to everyone. But after everything we've uncovered today, one unavoidable question remains. Do they really? FIFA insists that it acted within its own disciplinary code. Its critics argue that this decision has opened one of the most controversial precedents in World Cup history. If an automatic suspension can be lifted under exceptional circumstances, where does the exception end? Will every major football nation now demand the same treatment for its star players? Has the Balogun case quietly rewritten the rules of international football? Or was this truly a unique decision that will never happen again? That is the debate. And now, we want to hear from you. Leave your opinion in the comments. Did FIFA protect justice, or did it create a dangerous precedent for the future of world football? The most insightful comments will be featured in one of our upcoming videos. If you enjoyed this deep investigation, this is the perfect time to support the channel. Like this video, subscribe to Expertise AI, activate the notification bell so you never miss our exclusive football investigations, tactical breakdowns, legal analysis, and data-driven predictions. Your subscription helps us continue producing independent, fact-based content for football fans around the world. And don't keep this investigation to yourself. Share it with your friends, your football groups, and every passionate football supporter you know. Because the bigger this discussion becomes, the stronger the football community grows. Thank you for your incredible support. Every view, every comment, every subscription, and every share motivates us to keep uncovering the hidden stories behind the world's biggest sporting events. Until our next investigation, remember this. Sometimes World Cups are not decided only by goals scored on the pitch. Sometimes history is rewritten inside the meeting rooms long before the final whistle. Thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you very soon on Expertise AI, where football meets facts, strategy, intelligence, and the truth behind the game.